Welcome to our August meeting of the CalSAUS JPA. We have confirmed quorum, and our agenda, we will have 5 consent items, 8 informational items. We do have 1 closed session item as well. So I'll open it up right now for public comment on any items not listed on the agenda. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and proceed into our action items, which are 5 consent items.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of our action items, the consortium is looking for approval of the minutes of the June 27th, 2024. Wait, is that right? July 12th. I'm looking at the wrong document. 2024 JPA Board of Directors meeting. And then we're also looking for approval of the Central Change Notice 34, which includes 7 premise items. Approval of the Clear Best Work Order 6, and then approval of the Gainwell Central Print Change Order 2, as well as our approval of the Regional Government Services Amendment 41, which includes the addition of our Chief Technology Officer position.
Yeah, so I'll give a brief description of each of those. The first being the Accenture Change Notice 34, that includes 5 new premise items and 2 previously approved premise items with state fiscal year shifts and no overall cost change for those 2. I'll read out the list for the record. CalFresh eligibility disqualifications for certain convicted felons, CalFresh restaurant meals program notice eligibility clarification, CalFresh notice of denial of pending status, CalFresh and CalWorks implementation of reforms, and resume pre-pandemic Medi-Cal operations. Those are the 5 new. The 2 with shifts include CalFresh discontinuance of gambling wins and CalFresh reinstatement approval and denial notice revisions. So the combined total of these premise items is $2.3 million. That would leave a balance for future change and notice work of $49.1 million from that change allowance. We've also accounted for routine WAN updates. That includes updates to the specifications of land and some site location updates. That's no cost change, just administrative. It also includes 1 county purchase for San Diego County. That's for a purpose-built data set scope in the amount of $68,322. That would leave a balance of just over $14 million for future county purchases. And all of the costs in this change notice are funded through premise and county funding, with current year costs accounted for in the current year JPA project budget. For Clear Best Work Order, that includes 7 premise items. I won't read those all out. They are complementary to the Accenture Change Notice 34 or prior approved premise items. The combined total for that work order is $259,722. And that leaves a balance of just over $5.2 million for the Clear Best future work. Those costs are accounted for through premise funding as well. The Gainwell Central Print Change Order 2 includes 3 county purchases. Those are all for return mail services applicable to Butte County, Sacramento, and San Mateo. Those county purchases are funded and accounted for. They're funded through county funding and accounted for in our JPA project budget as well. And then lastly, our Regional Government Services Amendment 41. This includes the addition of a new position that we are currently recruiting for. It's a Chief Technology Officer position. We've accounted for the costs in the CalSAUS project budget. And current year costs are accounted for in the JPA project budget. And back to you, Julia. Okay.
All right.
Or Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. On the CTO position, is that an additional position or is that an upgraded position?
It's technically an upgraded position.
Any questions or comments from our board members or state partners on any of the 5 items on the slate of consent?
Is there a organizational restructure around that position or simply just an upgrade?
Yes, there is.
There's a reorg
Yes, there's a real.
affiliated with that too. Is that something that you can come back and kind of let the board know what the reorg looks like and everything?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. We're gonna have that in the future. Any other questions or comments from our board members, state partners on this slate? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve these 5 items together? I'll move. You have a second? I'll second.
All right, Kelly?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. Francina?
Yes.
Melissa?
Approve.
Kristen?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
And Cynthia?
Yes.
All right.
So passes. That brings us on to informational items.
Yeah.
We're going to start with a quarterly fiscal update. Brings Holly back to the table, right?
She's in the hot seat today.
I know this is your favorite topic once a quarter. Just before I jump into the slides here, I will note that we are currently closing out and reconciling the prior state fiscal year. We're working through that. We're on track to close out within a fraction of what we reported in May, so all was good there. So jumping into the slide, this first one is our usual slide, how the details are organized into our definitions for the various abbreviations. Note, we no longer have our Cowan funding or the D&I category for CalSAWS. We do have 36 premise items included in that category, however. For our dashboard on the next slide, this is our summary level cost by cost allocation plan, which of course we must align to. It's a roll-up of those 36 premise items. And we've included partial actual costs through September. Why September? Because we do have invoices that we have either paid or will pay. So we went ahead and tracked those against our actuals. It does not include county claims yet, as the July claims won't come in until this month. We're tracking $361.3 million for CalSAWS based on approved allocation. We've got $82.6 million for premise, and of course our JPA administrative budget costs that are not claimable to the other funding categories. The combined total is $444.6, and with the start of the new year, we do expect full utilization. Our next slide is our consortium personnel details. We've updated to the new year to include our funded FTE counts. Including, we also have some transition staff for the upcoming transition activities. And then as discussed earlier, we're working on a recruitment of the CTO. And we also have some backfill in some analyst positions. We actually filled several positions just in the last few days as we closed out a prior recruitment. So we'll see an update on the next report for that. Our next slide includes the costs and the hours. We combined this slide. These are M&E hours or system change requests. The supporting details, a lot of details are included in the attachment to the board package. We did include prior year and current year in that package. The slide reflects current year. Note, this is based on service month. So the hours are not showing here. For example, for May service month, we paid those in June. They are showing here, then we've paid them in July. So the beginning of the year and the end of the year are a little bit of a mix across different vendors and so forth. We are tracking to just over 237,000 hours for M&E. That includes the previously negotiated offshore hours. Those are quote unquote no cost hours. We continue to have the funding specific to client correspondence hours. Those are intended to support that high volume of client correspondence work or change in that area. And then for benefits count, we have our standard 30,000 hours per year. We expect to fully utilize all hours. Our next slide includes our contract obligations. So we start fresh for the new year. We're tracking a few LDs or liquidated damages that will be applied this year, and we have those on our September invoice list. And this slide also includes a list of approved change notices and work orders, inclusive of the consent items approved earlier. We did consolidate this list, of course, for space and fit it on the slide here. We've rolled up the list from prior years for this report. And then our next slide, I do have a few highlights related to some contract items specific to county purchases. I wanted to highlight for you that I know there's been a lot of questions. It's a topic we did cover in detail yesterday with our fiscal and contract representatives that your staff participated in that conversation. We've covered the topic before. We will continue to cover that topic with that group. So anyway, we did have a great discussion yesterday. We provided clarification of the process, clarification of the APD requirements. We added clarification and context and perspective to the timelines for turnaround, in particular around enhancement requests. As you know, those go through the county enhancement request or CER process first, so that we can assess the overall feasibility, impact to schedule, scope, cost. We look at any impact to ongoing costs and consider whether we can move forward with that. Sometimes counties decide to move, if the project can't support, then it moves into a county purchase. So that adds to that overall timeline and turnaround time on the county purchase. In all cases, timelines for county purchases do vary based on the specifics of the request. Some county purchases require additional discussion with counties, additional assessment, impact analysis, security, privacy assessments. And especially now as we approach transition, we do have to consider our contract constraints due to term limits within the existing agreement. So infrastructure scope, for example, concludes with Accenture at the end of January 2025. So we have to watch that for any county purchases related to infrastructure scope. So with that clarification, and again, we had a great discussion with your folks yesterday, and we'll continue that discussion. And then CalSAWS, our PMO office, is always available to answer any questions at pmo.fiscal@calsaws.org. Happy to help with any questions going forward as well. With that, I will turn back to Michael for questions.
All right, thank you, Holly. I do have a question about just the first bullet. So there is an actual, we actually have a document that highlights the sort of allowable areas and non-allowable areas for county purchases to help guide all 58 counties on what to submit so that they're not wasting time doing that. And does this go to the RMs? I mean, who's the keeper of that?
Yeah, it's actually a set of slides
Okay.
that we update, add clarification to, and we bring it back to this group. Our RMs are participants or copied on the fiscal group meeting notices, so they have that, and they also have access to with our CMO office as well.
So the RMs are responsible for communicating with the counties on this to make sure they understand it.
My team typically communicates that with this fiscal group, but the RMs help absolutely facilitate the field questions. We work with them closely when there's various questions from the counties.
Right. What falls into the, when you were covering the budget earlier, the administrative area that goes back and gets allocated?
Yeah, that's our JPA administrative budget. That's the insurance, our auditor controller, the San Bernardino ATC, that handles all of our
So
financial
administrative
reporting.
support for the JPA itself. Any other questions or comments from our board members, state partners on this presentation? Hearing none, any public comment? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next item.
Yeah, so we, we got some feedback from the board on some items that we wanted to discuss around adoption. So the team is going to be reporting out on that, but I think first we have an ROI update from Lynn. Lynn, are you on?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is Lynn. Just a real quick update. As previously reported, our state partners have issued draft ACL and ACWDLs and attachments on there. They have collected a considerable amount of input and they're in the process of reviewing those. They do anticipate being able to release a final letter in the next, probably within the next month or so. So we're waiting for that piece. In the meantime, internally for CalSAWS, we're looking at what it was that we were going to automate and comparing it against the draft letter as it is at the moment, waiting for that final one and to determine some course of action moving forward. So definitely working through that. Our work group continues to meet. We've looked at some scenarios, if you will, or permutations of what might occur given the latest draft ACL on there to help with our discussions so that counties and CBOs will be able to start working on their business processes. So definitely more to come. Once we get a little more information on what that will look like, we'll continue to share. And of course, we know that it's going to be quite a training component on it on what does all of this mean and be able to share information. And that is my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everyone. I think the next topic, as Julia mentioned, the next topic we'd like to cover for our JPA board this morning is about the strategy and usage for adoption of Beneficial. And before we dive deeper, as Julia mentioned, during the last month's board meeting, we had a topic and productive conversations on how do we move the needle or the avenues that we can as we move forward for the overall usage of Beneficial and the awareness. And the next few slides with Blake and Shauna, we will walk you through a go-forward plan for short-term, middle-term, and long-term for the Beneficial users, including the existing portal users, including the users of the overall CalSAWS ecosystem, meaning the customers are preferring to use mail, in-person, phone, or other channels at the moment, and overall interactions and awareness with the Californians. And all of these go-forward plan is supported by the goals or the overarching objectives called North Stars, which I will let take over from.
Right. So our first slide here is just addressing, kind of setting the scene of what we're going to use as guiding principles overall, right? So make sure we're all aligned there. So we want to drive increased adoption of features, customer account creation, increase overall trust and awareness. Right, that's our overall objective. So some other pieces that we're using as guiding North Stars, it's reducing foot traffic to county offices, increasing efficiency there, right? Collaborating across stakeholder channels to aid engagement with users, right? User self-sufficiency overall, right? Empowering users to own their benefits journey more inclusively. Iterate objective and key results aligned to value-based metrics. So making sure that we outline what are our metrics that we're going to use to measure this when we start something, how to turn out at the end, how do we loop that through and improve that as we go, right? Helps us tell us that like benchmarks and rules for where we go with that. Overall, reduce call volumes to counties and increase user engagement and perception overall a little bit more holistically. We'll kind of talk about that when we get towards the. Can we go to the next slide? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a quick question. How did we come up with the North Stars?
So fundamentally, we had some, we looked into our previous marketing campaigns and the feedback we have been hearing, and also had some discussions with our like Julia and Ben before the meeting to kind of summarize the overarching objectives.
I would say that these are brought forward also to test and get feedback on whether those are aligned with where we want to focus.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're getting a lot of input if we're going to use those as our guiding principles.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Alrighty, so how this is structured and broken down, Hunter talked about a little bit. We kind of have 3 core groups that we have that are broken down by a number of data points we have and like level of engagement we have with it. Right, so we'll kind of start at the center of these concentric circles. Benefits Cal users, right? This group specifically is ones who have a Benefits Cal account, right? So we can kind of subsegment people for how we can target them, work through within adoption groups, right? We're going to see overlaps as we go through for following slides that address each of these groups for our time range, right? Benefits Cal customers, right? Folks who are receiving benefits but don't have a Benefits Cal. Really straightforward. And then broader, right? Our larger California population when we look at perception kind of overall from that perspective. So kind of looking at that way.
And one nuance maybe here, like I can chime in, it's not necessarily folks who are receiving benefits, but they are part of this ecosystem of local songs. They may not be or receiving benefits at the moment, but if they're interested, they may be beneficiary or not overall. And the folks including, going to low cost county lobbies, their phone channel, mail channel, etc. So it doesn't excluding the benefits called existing for users essentially.
Yeah, it's gonna, if you look at these circles, this is kind of how you look at your groups, right? You have your core, which is your benefits account users that expands out, right? When you look at how we target folks and overlaps that are going to be there from touch points. Right, so these 3 slides are broken down into those 3 groups, right? We're looking at short, mid, long-term, short being 4 to 8 weeks, mid 2 to 6 months, right? And long-term, anything over 6 months. So we can kind of gauge where we go and level of complexity and which we define additional things that we iterate through. So short-term email and text nudges aligned with specific user journeys is important. We've done this in the past, and so kind of continuing that part so we can look at where that moves for adoption and keep going that way. And this is for current benefits Cal users, right? So we have most of their information. We can target that.
Just real quick on that one, sorry to interrupt you, but for the text messages, is that an outreach campaign only for folks that have elected to receive text messages?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. So for our previous, it's a great question, by the way. In the previous marketing campaigns, we consider that who opted in to receive those messages instead of sending blasts for communications.
Next, customer email newsletter. So overall, we can look at what details a little bit on this for how frequent it is, but this is just more. Lots of folks from when you look from adoption standpoint may or may not know about the features that come along. Look at this a little bit more. We look at midterm too, but just getting it out there. Balancing against how much are we sending to users or not to make sure that they're opening stuff and it's useful for them, right? So we have to deal with that as we go. And then leveraging existing county access channels with customers, right? So if you look at things that we have for touch points that are already existing for these customers, where through the life cycle for their benefits, reapplying what's going on, right? Pick them up and start turning them back towards benefits account, which can help with decreasing local counties and balancing that bit from an in-traffic standpoint.
This would be things like kiosks in IDR. So any place where they already are having an access connection with the county, that we want to try to use that as an opportunity to help potentially pivot them because they're already naturally going to that point. So we want to try to take advantage of those channels that exist today.
Any questions there? Moving on, midterm, so 2 to 6 months, right? Looking at in-application cross-feature promotion when we look at adoption, right? Connecting that balance there. As you're moving through a specific user journey, how do we introduce you to other features as part of the system that help follow what you're going to need to do? For instance, going through application, right? Cross-promoting, renewal, it's like pretty straightforward. Giving timeline creates transparency for the user crowding. Right. Examples of that. Materials for counties and CBOs, right, to advocate usage for customers. So making it easy for folks to give the information for customers for adoption, right? They don't have to make anything, so you pass it along down And collecting qualitative, objective and key results through your strategic intercept survey. So increasing where we put intercept surveys so we can get voice of the customer through for that specific journey, right? If that makes sense. So if you're going through renewal, right? We're gonna know that that's targeted to that and applies to that subgroup, so we can tailor those pieces for adoption a little bit better. The last piece when we look at long-term here is when we look at acknowledging that cultural groups are dynamic, right? That we want to conduct targeted research to understand specific adoption barriers. So we want to look at as groups change and over time, so we can pick up subsets to increase adoption overall, or understand why, at least, and how do we move the needle from that. Right, so that's a big part when we look at picking up groups that have a little bit more barriers to entry.
Any other question?
Just as a feedback point that we've heard on this project, a lot of surveys go out the door.
Yeah.
I don't think your intent in the midterm bottom bullet there is to say surveys are the only way you're getting data. I know you're gonna get it out of monitoring tools.
For sure.
The other thing that's out there is maybe just enhance that a little bit, because that's something we hear before.
Oh, they just
There's gotta be,
survey,
get what you
survey.
can outside of a survey and then go to the survey and keep it short
Yeah.
surveys.
It's a tool to shape more data once you collect through. Perfect.
Just one other quick comment. Appreciate you touching on looking at kiosks and IVR. Question regarding videos, because we have televisions in every single one of our lobbies. We have the customer facing dashboard, and we've gotten great feedback on the videos produced through Benefits Cal. Our CSC, customer service agents, use them a lot. Navigate customers, we refer customers over to those videos. Question is, are we going to create a video that's really going to promote Benefits Cal that can launch them in our lobbies?
Definitely, that is part of the long-term goals as well.
There is a video available in the marketing toolkit. When the Calhoun counties were migrating, a lot of them ended up using it to help increase awareness. So we can make sure that that gets amplified. It's something that we did, and I didn't mention it, but we're gonna look to see if there are things that we can enhance, but it is an overarching overview of Benefits Cal that is available. So we'll make sure, owner, that that gets out there so that all the counties are aware.
Yeah, and James, it's also more broadly, not just, that wouldn't be specifically for just the current Benefits Cal users, but this next slide, which is the broader group who is coming in, specifically all CalSAWS users that are coming into the lobby. All right, so I think that we kind of touch upon that on the next slide.
One point, and I brought up Benefits Cal, and then I saw how to watch the videos, and I didn't want to click on it. It's my first in-person meeting, and I didn't want to be that
You don't
person.
understand, yeah, exactly, start blasting, yeah.
And just real quick for the videos that we are looking at and strengthening, it will be in English and in Spanish.
We actually have them available, I think, owner, I don't know if we did in the offices, I don't know that they're translated or not.
I think all the threshold languages we had is translation subtitles.
For YouTube videos, we do. We'll go back and confirm for the one that we created, that cycles in the lobbies, if that one is too. We'll go back and confirm. Yeah.
Right, we move on to the next slide. So this group here is folks who are currently receiving benefits on a Benefits Cal account, right? So try and move them to be a little bit more self-sufficient from there. I'm gonna move a little bit quicker here. So we're getting social media touch points, right? How we interact with users from like consistency basis, from posting preferences there. Continuing email and text nudges for outreach, right? So you're gonna see lots of similar touch points we had from before. Scripts for counties for voice recordings for folks when they're on hold, right? Like you can push that across, right? Easy way to pick up folks. You don't want to wait on move over, right? You can be self-sufficient. Moving over to midterm, targeting specific groups through strategic paid social media is an easy way for low cost that we can start targeting really specific groups depending on where we want to focus overall, right? With engagement campaigns, empowering stakeholder partners to promote Benefits Cal overall, which then brings us into get CalFresh sunset user adoption, right? As we were CBOs and partners and CalFresh sunsets over the next year, right? That we bring folks over from there, so the transition happens over time through multiple touch points, probably ideally rather than get CalFresh goes and then you have to jump and switch over. Usually in process that happens, but the more we can use that, the better it's going to be. Will help adoption curve a bit. Looking long term, right, 6 months plus, then strategic partnership cross promotion overall when we look at with CBOs and other state programs that way, as well as in-person product marketing. These can be things like having shirts printed for county workers, right, or bus routes, meeting people where it fits from their group for adoption or visibility for benefits gals can do that. Right.
Excellent.
Shauna, do you want to pick this one up?
Sure, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right here. So going forward, we want to also think about building awareness of Benefits Cal with eligible Californians. As Blake mentioned, our outreach efforts in the short term focus on current Benefits Cal users, as well as those who are already receiving benefits. But one of the long-term solutions to building awareness and really furthering Benefits Cal adoption is to reach Californians who may or may not be aware of Benefits Cal and the various programs that are available to them. So working with the consortium, we will align on some areas of opportunity that will allow us to reach those individuals really where they are, using their preferred communication channels and at multiple touch points. And that multiple touch points is really important to building awareness and ultimately furthering adoption. So with that in mind, we wanted to highlight 4 specific areas of opportunity. We have expanding campaign to digital media. So, Blake touched on this a little bit previously, but using digital ad campaigns really helps to promote brand awareness and promote trust through channels that they're already engaging on. So thinking about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat with our younger audiences, and even streaming platforms like Spotify or Hulu. These platforms allow us to reach individuals who are not only already digitally focused, but the platforms themselves allow for more targeted reach through filters such as demographics, geographics, really able to better reach the polycultural audience. As a complement to that, we also are looking at search engine marketing. This really can help to enhance programs' visibility through low-cost efforts. The measurable impact is great as well. And you're really reaching individuals who have a higher intent. These might be individuals who are already searching for information related to programs or services that are supported by Benefits Cal. And so, if someone's on Google and they search for, healthcare or, whatever, search term we would put in there, Benefits Cal would be, the top search or ad. So they would click on that to be able to learn more information and capture their attention. Going hand in hand with that, though, there's also traditional media. So we know that not everyone is, always on their phone or watching TV. So traditional through, digital platforms. But traditional media allows us to capture audiences, if they're listening to the radio, through direct mail, or out of home. So thinking of, billboards, bus wraps. This tends to hit a broader swath of people. However, you're also engaging with them and able to target more specific geographic locations and populations. And then finally, making sure that community and cultural events are also a part of these outreach efforts. Using, these types of in-person, more personalized approach to interacting with potential users will, go a long way in building not only awareness, but also trust with these audiences.
Thank you, Shana. So these were our updates. Michael, for the fiscal section, we will pause here for additional questions.
Okay. So I like a lot of the ideas and things that are being put in these three different buckets that you guys have said. The first two, which are our current benefit Cal users, and then also our CalSAWS caseload folks that may not be on benefits Cal. I think that something's missing, and I would like to see us incorporate that, and that is in the spirit of user-centered design, having some walkthroughs with actual users in the first group, because I want to look for finding out from them where we could make the platform more powerful, more sticky, more effective for them. And I really think that, watching them kind of navigate and see how they use it, and asking those kind of questions about why is it that you don't use this? They might say, well, it doesn't do me any. We really need to look around that. I don't want to keep moving forward thinking we know how people want to use this, and I want to go back and dive in there. And then also with the group that doesn't use it, to focus on what might be challenges in terms of onboarding and trying to get them initially in through the system to see, why is it that they haven't, or they might have tried and gave up. So I want to see those two groups have that kind of sort of watching user experience and observing and taking notes and bringing that back so that we can improve the experience, both from an onboarding initial setup to an actual usage perspective. And it might make us make some changes to what we're emphasizing and where benefits Cal is going. I love that we do have a third group, and that's broader onboarding in our program. But definitely in the first two, I really would like to see that incorporated. And I know that's a resource thing that you have to really think about how to do it. But I want to make sure that voice is permeated through this.
Yeah, I think, go ahead. I was gonna say, I think they're already kind of going in that direction, have the data even on abandonment or where they're getting stuck, why someone's spending so much time on this, is it the verbiage on that particular screen? So I think some of that focus group work is already, being done, but we need to make it more structured and more intentional in terms of how we're gaining that in the feedback loop, in terms of how that information is helping with some of the design going forward, because they're already capturing that data in terms of abandonment. Why are people continuing to abandon at this part of the screen? Are they getting confused here? So that kind of thing. But I think over the shoulder, having some focus groups where people are over the shoulder, having those conversations real time is also helpful.
I agree. I want to be data informed, but I also don't want it to end with that.
No,
I mean,
we had talked about it, Michael, last board meeting, and I think we just missed incorporating it because that was part of the strategy. And I think it's part of what we do already today, where the team would go out to a food bank.
We'd be
they would
consistent
sit behind
with user-centered design. I just want to make sure that we're, once it's
We'll make it
designed, we're still doing.
We're doing all of the user testing, user interview that you go through, right? So you test, record, see what's going on, and then understand why. Right. It's that user story that.
I mean, we may find some very gleaning things that we designed something that really just is not effective for people.
But this small change isn't actually happening this part, right?
Yeah, and also I'd like to look at it to be comprehensive in terms of the engagement from the user's perspective, but then also what are the expectations on fulfillment?
Yeah.
Like when they're making changes in their requests, what is their expectation? I would really want to get to that so that we can incorporate our business process behind it to find out, okay, well, if they're thinking this is coming back in like an hour and it doesn't, and then that's why they're calling our call center. I mean, it really can open up a better dialogue on how we can make these platforms and tools work together to support our customers, our participants, but also our workers too.
We're seeing that actually since we put the dashboard. I think it was one of the things when we put out that the tracker for renewals and where things were in the process. that as soon as we put it out, we started to see messages on social media where people were saying, well, I thought I would get an instantaneous response and it still says it's in progress. Where is it? So as we're putting it out there, Michael, we're starting to get that feedback.
And I think it'll help, as the more we can know here to be better at expectation management.
Yeah.
And I don't think we do an effective job just universally with expectation management. And that's not to say that we need to make people, placated in any way, but it really is to really just sort of set an expectation up front on what the turnaround time is going to be, so that there's not a miss, and then several channels are accessed, and then you have the same answer.
Well, it increases satisfaction overall too, right?
I mean, I wouldn't want to have to go through and hear the same thing again if that's what it is. So, yeah, I'd really like to see how that can be incorporated. And I think it could be very beneficial to counties as we look at our process, tie back to those.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to, we hit the 5 million application mark, so I just want to kind of acknowledge and, we would have a cake with 5 million candles, but our department would allow us to have that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Kristen has her hand up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we've got to keep in mind that
The
the people that are polite, with their hands up.
time.
Is that Kristen?
Hi, thank you. I have a question and a comment. So the first question is, for the dashboards, if we just referenced it, the renewal dashboards and the where your information is in the process, which I think is great. Are there any major areas where that is still forthcoming? Like, we know it exists for renewals. Does it exist for SAR 7? Does it exist for all of the major times that we interact with our customers?
Really
We do, Kristen. We do get that data from our interaction with customers through the USD and the Slack channels. And,
I'm sorry, I can't hear, owner, sorry.
oh, sorry. I can be louder, Kristen. Yes, we do have that information. We have interactions with the customers a lot through our UCD and the CX channels. And from the customer dashboard standpoint, we have some specific inputs from them, including EBT card related, the applications and renewals and SAR 7 trackers, etc. So they're we have their top 5 to 7 kind of areas that they are interested in.
Okay, and then the last one is just a comment, kind of similar to Michael's recommendations about continuing to keep user-centered design. I also, our team members, that we have a really robust call center, and they help people navigate every single day, multiple times a day, uploading documents and such. So I think they're also a robust group to get really rich feedback on the problems they're encountering. And I know you do that, but I really want to continue to encourage that. And then, of course, offer up LA whenever you need any sort of focus groups of team members to be able to provide that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, we will.
That's great.
Something similar to Kristen, it seems like one of the real main selling points for Benefits Cal is for the applications and why we had received so many applications. It's great to initiate the application, but then there's the user experience being able to complete the application through Benefits Cal, or is there a requirement that something's got to go out in the mail and then be signed, as opposed to being able to finish it on Benefits Cal or through the phone call? So those are the things. Oftentimes, if everything's not available on Benefits Cal, if there's some form that's got to go out by the mail that stymies the user wanting to return to Benefits Cal, as opposed to always going to Benefits Cal. And like Kristen said, with regards to the staff, our staff are some of our best advocates for the youth, because if they can finish their job by utilizing Benefits Cal, if they can do everything they need to, all the forms that they need to send out are there, then they're going to be very vocal to our customers about the benefits, to say, hey, we can complete everything through this process without you having to come into the office, without us having to mail something out and waiting another extra week. So just something to keep in mind, is the importance of how much that they can accomplish.
Yeah, Greg, and I think part of, it was in there, but not as blown out, was, engaging the county workers, but they talked about the scripts, making it real easy for the county workers to market without having to think too much, just make sure here, a couple sentences on this to to redirect and help them, help support that work. Yeah, absolutely. I know the county, you know, the call centers are big advocates of this system.
Yeah, and marketing from them is great, but really selling the staff, you know, such that they know that
Value
it's a true benefit.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
We did also, Greg, we do have owners every other month. We do the trainings for the counties and the CBOs. That's something else. I think there's an opportunity that we should really take advantage of so that the counties know the latest, what they can help to advertise in terms of usage as well. So that's something else that we'll make sure is heightened as part of this too.
Yeah, just piggybacking on Greg's comments, just about looking holistically at the potential for benefits Cal improvements and things that we do to really wrap around folks. You know, this benefits Cal is going to be a huge component in CalAIM and how we're really, you know, trying to move the needle in a number of areas in CalAIM. In fact, benefits Cal is going to be at the front end of that. I don't want it to just be a front end. I want us to figure out, like, how do we not have people have to go to another channel or do something different than to complete the, you know, complete receiving the benefit or being able to receive their card or being able to, you know, to advance in their life. So yeah, I really want to look at it holistically like that. And I think that getting direct user feedback will be a great way to do that. But keeping in mind that things like CalAIM and really, you know, all those aspects are all contingent on being successful in this space.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from our board members or state partners? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Waiting a little extra long because sometimes they can't get off.
I think I was muted. I have a public comment.
There we go. Is that Jen Tracy?
It's me. Yeah, sorry, it's Jen Tracy.
I'm recognizing the voices. Okay, good.
So for the slide on the objective and the North Stars, are there opportunities that the public and advocates will have to inform the North Stars? And I'm partly asking because we know that minimizing customer burden and streamlining interactions for eligibility workers is a requirement from the legislature.
Yeah, that was very draft, right? I think that was the first brush of it, but Jen, yeah, absolutely. If you have some suggestions on things that might have been missed, that goes to the board, obviously, that's a given. All right, absolutely share those.
Yeah. So they can just send to the project as they normally do, and the same for the board members as well. If we have ideas or nuances that came out of the conversation, or you think about it later. Again, I did ask about that because that is going to be where we're sort of driving things through. So we want to make sure that we've covered everything thoroughly. So yes, let's make sure we have a solid input channel here.
Is there a timeline to submit that feedback?
I think it would be ideal to get it within the next week or so, just so that we can factor in, kind of get some high level themes from the public and from the board to bring back for the next meeting.
Would it be okay if we gave everybody till the end of the month, just a nice solid day?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so the end of August, so then that way we have our feedback completed going forward at the beginning of September. Sure. Thank you. Any other public comment?
I have one more question if nobody else has a comment. In addition to the slide 17 that showed the collecting qualitative OKRs, will there be any quantitative metrics tracked to identify which of the approaches are most effective?
Yeah, so we do that currently through analytics. So as we go, that's overall arching when we set stuff from objectives and key results perspective. How are we going to measure this, right? Because the iterative part of this is the most important piece that's going to happen. Because we go through, we do something, we think it's going to work. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, right? But now we have a new data point that we can pivot on and say, hey, were we measuring the right thing to start with or not? And so we're going to use quantitative and qualitative, right, to do that, which I think kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about where do user interviews, where is the voice of the user coming in? Do we understand why it's actually happening from the real story, not just metrics numbers drop out there, but there's both of those.
And those are also things that you can make suggestions during this period as well. And when we come back next month to report out, we can discuss what we're looking at moving forward with.
So those will be shared publicly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I put my comment for the beginning of the meeting in the chat. Just want to let you know about that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, all comments in chat are also recorded and kept and shared. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll move on to our next item, and I believe that's
Yes.
fun stuff.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I have 3 updates since we last met. So let's roll through these. So the first one, as I mentioned last time, we were gearing up to run our CNI caller for our foster care, King Gap, and AAP populations. At the time, we had the draft numbers, and this really was a compressed testing cycle that we had this year. One of the reasons for that is because we did see that the FFA rates decreased by about 8%. So we wanted to get this run before the main payroll was running for 55 counties on August 1st. Again, minimizing any burden on the counties and workload for the county. So we did run that. Obviously, every time we run these callers, we learn something. And again, we do run lots of callers every year. And in this instance, we really have to swim upstream and work with our state partners on how early can we get these numbers. I know we worked on the draft numbers, and we made someone sign an ink that they weren't going to change, and that's what we moved forward with. But again, if we can continue to, talk through the timeframes so that we have enough time to go through our SDLC and get it in time that's most beneficial for our county workers and for our recipients, that is going to benefit everyone. So we'll be having follow-up discussions on this one as we move forward. Second item, I think we've all seen the news. We have had a number of fires across the state. So as mentioned last time, we had received a request that is going through the process to do mass replacement for 8 counties. So in those counties and impacted zip codes, we had individuals who suffered food loss and through power outages. So we did run this process at the end of July, and we issued close to about $500,000 in benefits to the impacted household. And again, that was replacing 60% of the CalFresh July benefits. Just hot off the press this morning, I got a quick alert that said we have another one that just came through. So in this instance, impacts our region 3 counties specifically: Calaveras, Humboldt, Mendocino. So as soon as we get approval on that, we will be running a mass replacement in accordance with the approved plan as well. And so while we're on this topic, and as we head into the fall, autumn, as I like to say, the training team under Ashley's direction are working on a quick guide as it relates to disaster CalFresh. We know that some counties have never issued disaster CalFresh through the system. Other counties, it may have been some time. So we, in working with San Diego County through their disaster CalFresh operation at the beginning of the year, did a retrospective. We've been working with the state, we've been re-looking at the training materials. So we are refreshing all the materials and updating and creating a new quick guide. And as you may hear from Peggy, as we go through the rest, there's a new process coming around Council's Learning Exchange. Disaster CalFresh will be an upcoming topic where we'll host a session with the counties just to go through that material and take any questions in readiness of things that may come this fall. So I just wanted to put that plug in for that as well. We can go to the next slide. All right, so I think last time we met, I'm not sure actually, but we had a week delay in our 2407 baseline release. This was our 4th baseline release of the year. And so to go back in time, we were running our regression testing in readiness for that release. That's we always do our system testing, our quality assurance testing, county validation, we have performance testing, we have regression testing. So we're running our automated regression scenarios with about 1,200 scripts, and we noticed some anomalies. And as part of that
we discovered that a couple of priority releases that we had done in late May were not merged into our 24/7 code stream. They were in production, they were just fine, but our future branch that we were testing at the time, they did not get these priority releases. We subsequently, after resolving the issue, redelivering the code, retesting the code, getting that out to you all at the end of July in that 1 week delay, we subsequently continued our root cause analysis to get to the bottom of what really had occurred here. And as it turns out, there was, our developers used a number of tools, and there was a particular tool that was automatically pushed out to our developers, and this tool handles those scenarios where there may be a code conflict. And so the new version of the tool had some changes in default settings. So this went undetected at the time. Subsequent to obviously going back and discovering this, we've taken a number of action items. First course of action was to obviously go through and reset the default. We'd have every developer sign on the dotted line that they're verified and got screenshots of that. We've held training sessions. We continue to hold training sessions on the revision to the tool. We've also looked at our processes because the process was not updated. And revise that documentation. And then the item that is still in flight is if and when a version upgrade occurs in the future, which it will, this is the third-party product, we make sure before that gets pushed out that it's communicated, it is tested, people are signing on the dotted line. It's not an automatic push. So that one is still in flight. Obviously, we haven't done another upgrade, but we're updating our documentation and processes to make sure that that is a step in the process. Now I'm going to pause because we have been working in depth with our quality assurance partners, ClearVest, as we've gone through this analysis and these actions. Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I'll come down to Lisa because I'm stuck in the corner over here. Just repeat a little bit of what I said at PSC yesterday. This was a big deal. I can't recall a time we've missed a baseline release date in the past several years. So the QA team was involved in the deep dive with the Accenture team on the matter and confirmed really from a people, process, tools, and training perspective what we need to do go forward. From a people perspective, 3 developers that helped us find this and were involved in the root cause, had over 30 years of experience. So it wasn't a new person trying to do something to miss a step. The tool itself did what it's supposed to, but it changed the defaults. You could have found that if you read detailed through the release notes. So that's a finding we have go forward on the tool that Lisa mentioned. From a training perspective, about 30 slides went out to the development team, sort of emphasizing some of the ticks and check marks that you have to do. In short, your baseline release has tens of thousands of hours in it every month. Your priority releases, which is where we are today, right? In August, we do priority releases. Those have like hundreds of hours. So we do a full regression test on the general release. It's not possible in each of those priority releases. You have over 1,200 scripts that you've invested in. So from a belt and suspenders standpoint, it was good that this was caught by that automated regression test suite. That's why it exists. We're disappointed it happened, but we know exactly why it happened, and we know how to prevent it go forward. So that's what I wanted to add. Thanks.
I think I have one more slide that we'll cover. All right, so where are we today in August? So from a baseline release perspective, we have started testing our 2409 release. You know, as Dan mentioned, we're belt and suspenders, so we are, you know, not only doing all our automated regression testing every week, we have added some manual checks just to confirm that we have no reoccurrence of the item as we move forward. From a release perspective, a lot of policy changes going in with this release. We have, especially around the Medi-Cal side, we do have, this is one of our releases where we have combined changes with our CalHIRS partner system. We do have some interface updates going in specifically around alternate formats. That is a focus area and working with our partners at DHCS. So this is a phased rollout as we talk about alternate formats, whether that be large print, braille, audio. So in this release, it's really about the data collection and tracking the customer preferences and exchanging that between the system in terms of their selection of how they'd like to receive notices and correspondence. In a future release, we are working on actually with Central Grant, with Benefits Cows, there's changes across all the systems in terms of enabling and sending out the large print, the Braille. So we are currently meeting with DHCS on that timeframe. It is slated for next spring timeframe, but we're finalizing that and the estimate and the funding for that to move forward. So you're going to see a lot more coming in this area in the coming months. From a priority release perspective, we do have some key changes coming at the end of the month, and this is related to the CHTP program that was sunset. So this first phase that's going in, we're turning off the interface. We're removing a number of publications from the Medicare renewal packets, and there's also some removal of some data collection questions from the application. DHCS is working on revisions to a number of forms that reference this program. So as they get released in the languages, we'll be flowing them through the system as well. And there is a future change working with Benefits Cal to make an update on Benefits Cal as well. So again, this is another one where we have a phased approach based on when we get the policy from the state, and we'll roll that out into the systems. And then before we even deploy the release, we do have our CalFresh COLA that we typically run every year. And so we just received the draft numbers. We've started development based on those draft numbers. Again, we have a very short timeline to get these COLAs run and tested. We continue discussions with CDSS on that. We know they get a number of these from the Fed, so we keep pushing to make sure we get those final numbers so that we can hit these dates and get this COLA run in early September. So we have a lot of eyes on this one as well as we move through the development life cycle to hit the date, because first time with 58 counties, and it's over 3 million programs that we'll be running. So it is one of our very large COLAs of the year. And I think with that, I'll turn it back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Lisa. I was really glad to see you guys find the root cause. Config management, release management is hugely important in our project, especially with so many changes. So I'm really glad you drove that to ground. Any comments or questions from our state partners or our board members for this presentation? Any public comment? Okay, thanks, Dan. Thank you, Lisa. We'll bring reports up then.
Yep, Sean. You're up.
All right, my favorite time of the month. Let's go through our latest update. You can see the same slide that we've had here for the last JPA update. As you can tell, we're still continuing to make a lot of progress. We're implementing things every single week. We're not waiting for baseline releases. We're getting things out as fast as we can. As soon as we can turn around that defect, we put it in production. As a matter of fact, we met this past week with our test team, and we're figuring out some new procedures to actually accelerate that even faster. So we'll be able to turn around things into production probably a few days quicker than we are right now. We're still continuing to focus predominantly on our state reports and fiscal reports. As you can see, we've made a lot of touch points with those, particularly the bigger ones and heavy hitters that we're getting a lot of feedback on. I do want to go through a couple of the top changes there, the first two, because they're good things to highlight. The first being the consolidated up some of the integrated fiscal reports. This was probably the biggest feedback point we got during our listening sessions last winter. What we had heard is, hey, it takes me 90 to 100 reports to produce my claim. We're now starting that consolidation process, bringing that down into single digits. There's another phase coming of some of the more detailed, less summary reports coming as well. But this is a big relief for a lot of the counties who produce those claims already. The second I thought was an interesting scenario where we're seeing some upstream things, yet it does expose stuff on the reports. So the reports are doing their job, that they're showing things that the counties need to have corrected. In this particular case, when we claim a person, we say, are you federally funded or state funded? And occasionally in certain programs, like GA being the most obvious, you could be county funded. So we have a concept of other. What we found is one report was saying, give me state and give me fiscal, or give me federal. So other wasn't being in the other at all. The other one was saying, just give me state or not state. So then suddenly other was being included in there. So it was a good example for the counties to reconcile their reports and go, hey, these numbers aren't matching, which means they're doing their job at that point, and that exposed a differentiation between the logic. So it was a good scenario for us to go through. If we look at the bottom right here, the other thing I want to bring to note is that we did deliver our second group of functional design documents. These are where we're writing in detail, as much in layman terms as possible, what is going on in that report. This is probably the second biggest request we got from the counties during those listening sessions, is tell me what it's doing, how it's doing it, where it's getting that data from. And while the technical documentation on how the report executes has been provided, this is that kind of detailed background and starting to build that confidence in those reports. Through those conversations, I think we're starting to slightly see the conversation change from what is it and how's it doing it to that's not what I think it should be doing. Or maybe we need to go back to CDSS and ask for a policy clarification. There was just one that came up on the GR 237 yesterday about the inclusion of scam benefits of GR issuances. So these are things where we're even saw in that dialogue, each county was like, I think I don't include it. Another county was, well, I do include it. So now we're starting to get to that next layer of specifics and where we got to go back to the state and get that policy. So while we're not completely there, it's interesting to see that the conversation switch from what is there and why is it doing what it is to differences in logic and what we got to do with the requirements. If we go to the next slide, this is a continued focus on our fiscal reports. We're down to 5 open defects. It is slightly more than what we had reported would be open at this time. That's because we had 3 new ones come in. So those 3 new ones, we already have targets for. All of these will be corrected by the end of the next baseline release. That doesn't mean we won't continue to see new things come up as the counties continue to reconcile and go through their process. On the enhancement side, I already talked through the fiscal consolidation, but we have seen an extra few reports get put into the reports committee backlog. So what I had reported last time is we only had 2 reports for state and fiscal or fiscal related state reports in the backlog. Now we've seen the committee go back, revisit their priorities and add more to that as well. So the process is working. The last side here is a couple of things. First is another interesting example of things upstream, meaning the reports are working. We've had some aid codes switch from mixed to state funded. So when the counties are looking at their reports and they go, why am I seeing mixed values on my state funded aid code? So the report worked. It showed them exactly what they were trying to reconcile for. It wasn't showing what they thought it should. And we go, look, like, no, that's what the system said. So we have to go upstream into the system, go back to the eligibility side of the house and say, hey, why are you setting mixed values? And from there, we figured out, okay, we got to correct something there and it'll automatically flow into the reports as expected. So it's good to start seeing those things be more consistent with our experience as well. The last thing I want to report, and I am asking for any help you can provide on this, is we are seeing an increase in late files. So in the last JPA reported, we had to rerun 46 reports in the last month. Now it's up to 99. So that what that means is if there's a late file, I run the reports automatically, your reports are blank. So during the night, we're up potentially if your county has nighttime support and we call and they're like, oh, this has happened, or I have a network issue or something's gone wrong. The county works through their process to correct it, send us the file that we process it as soon as we can during the day. Once that's done, we rerun the reports for you to make sure that they're captured. We are just seeing a higher increase. This isn't enough, or like I would, send out blast emails and, throw up the flag that we got to do something, but it's enough where, hey, you're going to be feeling slowdowns sometimes right at the end of the month. If it's impacting your monthlies, you're going to end up with a day or 2 cut out of your 2 weeks to produce your state reports. And we have seen that a couple of times. So, we're going to be working with your folks. We're sending stuff out. We brought it up during the reports meeting yesterday. If you can kind of reinforce that, or if you happen to hear it, please, say this is something we want to work on. We want to get that done timely. Again, if this is 199 next meeting, maybe I'll throw up some flags. We got to start sending some communications, maybe open a risk or something. But at this point in time, it's just enough. I think if you could bring some awareness, that'd be good.
I would ask if you're having problems with counties, reach out to the department heads.
Sure.
'Cause that's not a problem.
The interesting thing is, actually someone pinged me yesterday after PSC. It'd be a lot easier if I could be like, hey, it's Sacramento County, you know, and call, but it's really
Usually
not.
the ones blamed anyway, so it's okay.
All right, it's Sacramento.
Well, let's say it's Sacramento.
It's a high volume of counties doing it a few times. Right, and so in the small amount, that's not a big issue, right, for your county, your county, your county. But in the aggregate to us, suddenly it's like every single day we're rerunning reports. So I think at this point, it's a bit more reinforcement or communication than it is start calling the counties and saying, hey, you're doing this a lot. So if that does end up being a pattern, then we'll definitely reach out, probably through the operation side, and make sure we're talking to the right folks. And that is it for reports, Michael.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sean. Any questions, comments from our board member, state partners on that? Any public comment?
Yeah, I have this Kevin. Oh, let me. Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So I'm not a hologram. I'm looking at slide 25. There was a bunch of defects on slide 25. And then on slide 26, there's only two which are mentioned. The CF256 and FNS 209. I'm not sure what the defects are on all of those other ones that are on slide 29. Is there any way we could get some information about what the defects are?
They're all, well.
Yeah, I think we can probably bring that back, just from a time perspective. Getting into each specific defect might be a little difficult for this forum, but Kevin, we can follow up with you on that
If you could share that,
information.
if you could
Yeah,
share
we'll
that,
follow.
we'd be more grateful. And also, you mentioned a couple of SCRs over here. And yeah, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4 SCRs. We're not able to access the SCRs. If you could be so kind to share that with us, we would be most grateful. Thank you. Is that okay?
Yeah, those are online actually, Kevin.
Yeah, it's except
They're in the
accessible.
they're in the change control board deck online.
Yeah, if you could be so kind, because I'm very young, but besides the point, it's also the SCRs are not that accessible. That's a whole different issue.
Okay.
Someday we could talk about it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other public comments? Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, we'll move on to Fresno Gen I update.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andy, and I'm on the Gen AI team. We are excited to share out an update on Fresno Gen AI Call Summary Assist. So the solution was fully deployed to production in June and July. To ensure a smooth and risk minimized deployment, we deployed the solution in 3 phases. We have some key performance metrics here on the slide to share with you. Since launch through the beginning of this month, we have generated 23,037 summaries. 100% of summaries were generated within 60 seconds. The average call end to summary end time was 8 seconds, which means that eligibility workers receive the summary very quickly following the conclusion of the call. We are seeing a 12% reduction in the average post-call wrap time and a 10% reduction in average handle time of the calls, which demonstrates that the solution is saving eligibility workers time. We are seeing 82% of the Gen AI call summary content retained, which tells us that the majority of the Gen AI content produced is unchanged by the eligibility workers. And then we have been sending out weekly surveys to eligibility workers where they may provide feedback on how the tool is working for them. And we have been utilizing that feedback to improve the solution. These suggestions largely include comments around room for improvement in recording clients' names, dates, phone numbers, and addresses, and feedback on the summaries sometimes being repetitive or sometimes lacking details. And we do have a release next Thursday where we will be implementing 6 new enhancements aimed at improving the summary output. We'd like to share some positive quotes from eligibility workers that we received in the feedback survey. The first quote here reads that the technology works at capturing the main points of the call, so eligibility workers only need to make minor edits. The next quote reads, "So far, it's a great compliment to our duties." And the last quote reads, "I am finding the assistance quite helpful in closing out phone calls more accurately and efficiently. Keep up the good work." That concludes our updates for today. Thank you so much for your attention, and I will pass it back to Michael.
Thanks, Andy. We're really still excited about this, so we keep wanting to hear more information. Do you guys have a quality control that goes back and looks at it in addition to just what the user feedback's giving you, just to see if the case notes were accurate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we do have that KPI on the slide here that 82% of the summary content is being retained. So that's definitely great to see. And we're currently working with Fresno on a deeper dive into what content is being changed. So looking forward to learning more about that as we continue.
All right, great. Thank you. Any comments from our board member state partners on this exciting initiative? Any public comment? Okay, thank you, Andy. We're going to pull an audible here because we need a little bit more time with the closed session, and our M&E risks, we're going to go ahead and keep them in the deck for everybody for public consumption, but we're not going to speak to them, and we'll bring them back in the next meeting. So we'll move down to our quarterly statistics update.
All right, thank you, Michael. And in spirit, I'll go quickly through these as well for you.
Appreciate it.
So from an overall perspective, this slide is continuing to track our quality for our releases from both our onshore and offshore teams. And we continue to produce high quality on a per release basis as we're going forward. So from that perspective, we continue to see the positive trend there. When we are running into issues, as we talked through before, we are doing RCAs on those so that we have a continuous feedback loop to continue to strive to produce even better quality than what we do before. If we move on to the next slide, this slide is tracking our onshore offshore ratios because there was a question around as we increased our offshore ratio closer to 40%. Would we see an associated decrease in quality? And as the previous slide demonstrated, we are not. Offshore is producing as high of quality as the onshore team is. Over on the right-hand side for July, we're at about 37% offshore, 63% onshore. So we're approaching that 40% limit as applied to in the contract. We move on to the next slide. From an overall defect backlog perspective, we continue to make good progress on the overall defects and addressing the backlog, which gets into some of the aging and of the tickets as well. For August, we're seeing an even better drop than what we're seeing in July. So it continues to be a focus of the team to clear those remaining defects, which will then continue to improve overall experience within the system. We move on to the next slide. From an overall metrics perspective, happy to report that for July, we returned back to overall green status across all of our SLAs. The reds in the May and June were associated with the Forge Rock issues. And from that perspective, with the additional review that we've been able to do with the deeper monitoring that was enabled, we have identified the root cause around the Ford truck. We've applied the changes in the environments, and we are continuing to monitor to trace any of those root causes to validate that they are complete. So we have another release going in on the 23rd of August, and we believe that post that we'll be able to close the associated issue that was for the Ford dropped issues. So we continue to obviously keep system availability as a very top priority for everybody involved, whether it's the end users, residents of the state of California, the counties, and across all of our services. So we are obviously very committed to continue that green trend that we saw for July into future months as well. We move on to the next slide. With this, I'll ask Sarah to come on from Highland to talk through the Highland imaging performance stats.
Thank you, Arnold. I can keep this short and sweet too. As you can see, we met the SLAs for both the monthly page views and the monthly database transactions. The numbers that you're seeing here are an average of May, June, and July. Unfortunately, we did miss the SLA for July for the monthly uptime. We did have an incident on July 11th for 85 minutes when we shut the system down due to a database issue that we were experiencing. Before we restarted everything, we made sure that the in-flight transactions were frozen to ensure no data loss while the issue was being resolved by executing a recovery procedure. This began at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, so that outage lasted for about 85 minutes. Since then, Highland has reviewed the database configuration and completed optimization work to improve performance and to prevent this issue from occurring in the future. That is what I have for Highland SLAs.
Thank you, Sarah. And then Rachel, are you covering Benefits Cal?
Yes, and in the spirit of being swift, not you, but me, being swift on the performance metrics for Benefits Cal, they are all focused on the end user experience. So they are tied to how quickly our pages are actually presented to people and how quickly we receive information from our external parties. I'm happy to report that we continue to, even with increased adoption, we get about 5,500 new accounts on a daily basis. We're averaging about 130,000 users uniquely logging in. We peaked in the last 2 months at about 190,000 unique logins, but the performance has stayed consistent throughout. That's what's in the 3 slides. Okay, Michael, I will turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm glad to see that we're on a positive upward trend, and stability is core and critical for everything for us. So I want to keep an emphasis on that. Thank you very much. I believe that takes us to, oh, wait a minute. Any comments or questions from our board members or state partners? I got ahead of myself. I was trying to be too swift.
I know, too swift. I have a question on Highland. Is there a time on the performance for page views on images?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear the full question.
For image views, is there a time that is being measured within 2 seconds like Benefits Cal, or is there a measure about that?
The SLA for performance for the Highland imaging.
Yeah, so I can take that. For the monthly page views, we do have, well, what the SLA is to be able to provide 90% of 70 kilobyte page views in 2 seconds or less. And for the monthly database transactions, the timing there is to provide 90% of database transactions completing in 1 second or less. And for the monthly uptime, the timing is, the target for that is 99.9% uptime each month. Does that help?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from our state partners or our board members? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Hearing none. I think that takes us now to procurement update,
Yes,
right?
now that's procurement update, and Holly, is Tom. Is Tom on? Oh, Tom, you're on today. Oh, yesterday.
Yes, I am. Let's start with the M&O procurement. We did have, as you know, an appeal filed February 15th, and the big upcoming dates are the appeal panel review hearing on August 30th. with the appeal panel rendering their decision on or before September 19th. So exciting times in the M&O world. In the procurement update for Benefits Cal M&O, we did receive three proposals. We're in the process of having them, some of them cure their corporate qualifications submissions, and we are planning to conduct the evaluation team, the business evaluation team training this coming week. That's the update. Back to you, Michael.
All right, Tom, always super swift. Thank you very much for that. All right, so we're going to be separating into a closed session. This public meeting will remain live until we reconvene at 11:30 on this meeting. So we will reconvene and finish up the meeting at 11:30, but the board members are going to be entering into a closed session. So thank you. We're going to play elevator music for everybody who's waiting here.
The Jeopardy, create suspense. All right, board members, if you want to follow.
Randy, okay.
Okay. And Adam. I didn't see you over there.
Do we have everybody back?
Yes, Tom's coming out.
All right, I see greens on the mics.
All right.
So everybody can hear us out there across Cyberland? Okay, thumbs up. Can they?
Yes, they confirmed the chat.
Oh, okay, thank you. Those that remain.
Yes.
All right, we are back from closed session, and there's no reportable actions or decisions or anything to report out from the closed session. So I'm gonna go ahead and move to just adjourning the meeting. Our next meeting is Friday, September 27th at 9:30 again. So yay, a little extra time for the planes. That's it. All right, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys hanging in with us, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
I know that they have the program.